Welcome back to Area DMG. I'm your host, Philip Wesley, the Mile High Mouth, and today we're looking at episode 8 of season 3 of Steven Universe, Mr. Greg. So, what happened was that Marty sold one of Greg's songs in a commercial, and it worked out okay, and it made him a ton of money. And he's got like, oh, we've got about $10 million here, but I have a simple life. I don't know what to do with this money. So they decide to go on a vacation. They decide to go to Empire City. Or is it? I forget the name of that. The big city. The one they mentioned. The one they've mentioned several times before. They flew over it before with Lapis and all this. He decided, essentially Greg, Steven's dad, and Steven decide to go to Empire City and take Pearl. And I'm like, oh, gee, I wonder what this is for. Is it to talk about Pearl and Greg's relationship? In other words, about the whole Rose Quartz thing. Anyways, there's a lot of decent music in here. Although, to be perfectly honest, it's really kind of irritating to see the little thing becoming like a hamburger commercial. Because I really liked that song when I saw it in that episode. Some of the music in Steven Universe is quite good, especially when it gets covered or turned into instrumental chiptune music, because then I'm like, yes, because you have some strong thoroughfares, but you have a lot of like with this episode, a lot of lyrics that are written a little bit like Rent. Okay, part of Rent. I know I've got a lot of musicals in here. How to Succeed in Business Without Really Trying. Pretty decent. The Producers. I also have the old one in here too. But yeah, I don't know. I have a problem with musicals. I mean, I do like some of these quite a bit, and I recognize the talent. I have a lot of theater background, and so I like musicals. And there's a lot of good songs in here, rather one thoroughfare song, but it's a lot of spoken dialogue songs. I like songs that convey what a character is feeling, like a good character feeling song, like a good want song. Like you see that in, say, The Little Mermaid, where she's like, I want to be where the people are, and doing her whole thing like that. And I'm not going to sing, so don't worry. But yeah, there's those types of songs, but then there are songs where people are like, well, I'm walking down the street and I'm talking, oh, here is a thing I'm telling you about. And this is another thing I'm telling you about. But instead, for some bizarre reason, I'm singing my dialogue instead of speaking it. And will you light my candle? Be her shivering. Now, there's a lot of that in this episode. And I'm just like, okay, decent. There's a really good, decent Pearl song in there where she pretty much goes over... She kind of lays out what's wrong. And finally, Pearl and Greg talk about it. And she makes it clear, she doesn't hate Greg. She doesn't hate Steven's dad. She just had that... She wanted an emotional attraction, an emotional attention from Rose Quartz that she couldn't have. You see, Pearl... like a lot of the main characters in here, are essentially like the crying breakfast friends, that little joke. They're waffles. They're undeveloped. They're undercooked eggs. They're emotionally immature. And that makes some of them very awful. It stands for a lot of really weird issues that the show has with some of its characters. Sometimes they don't feel like they learn anything, or they forget the lesson from one episode to the other, especially considering that this is not supposed to be episodic or Monster of the Week. And a lot of its character development is just like, well, let's borrow something from another show. And that's a bit unfair to it. I did like the music, even though it was a little bit more sung dialogue instead of sung music. And I thought it was pretty good. Finally, Pearl and Greg they've come to an agreement, I guess you could say. They've come to a point where they can be friends again. And they even have a little dance sequence, which I thought was kind of nice. Anyways, I mean, I'm not expecting them to be Stephen Sondheim or the Sherman Brothers. I don't expect to see amazing, sweeping orchestral moments in here. But I do expect to see catchy tunes, and we get those. And I do expect to see lots and lots of covers of those on YouTube from people who are fantastic vocalists or not so fantastic vocalists. That's kind of the part of the fandom of this that I really like. With Steven Universe, as with Adventure Time and other shows, I really like the fan-created music. I really enjoyed that. Fan art is okay. There's so many different styles, and then you have problems with this particular fan base in particular, where they're not too nice to people who make fan art and vice versa. And that's kind of unfortunate. But with the musical side of this, it's awesome. I like seeing and hearing those, and I'm looking forward to seeing what this one inspires. But I do want to talk a little bit about Pearl's relationship to Rose Quartz. Well, her relationship is interesting, and there's a couple things. I have a little bit of theories about gems. I think most of these gems are actually not I think actually when you look at this, Rose Quartz is the size that she is. Height, because she's way older than the majority of these. I kind of have this feeling that the longer a gem exists, or some other factor may influence the size of them. You see, rocks grow. Rocks actually do in fact grow, like stalagmites on the ground, they grow. Rocks in fact do that. That's one property of rocks that's kind of interesting. And the longer that a rock works through that or is used, or a gem, they grow. They literally do grow. And I'm thinking that a lot of our main heroes, they can relate a lot with Steve, because Steve is young. He's young. He's only as young as he feels. So he's very much a child, even though he is older than Connie or so. And the rest of the gems are actually very young. Pearl being kind of still she's the oldest of this, not Garnet. Garnet is two different gems, remember. Two different tiny gems, which have been shown to have very childish personalities. And that's actually something I'd like to go ahead and discuss. I watch a lot of anime. And there's some anime that I guess you could say is Yuri or whatnot. But there is a thoroughfare in a lot of anime. There's a type of a, quote, close and almost romantic friendship, end quote, that exists in anime. This is an idea that has fallen out of favor over the last several 50, 60, 70, 80, 90 years in many countries. And it's essentially, what they call it in Japan is Class S, or S-Class friendships. It's something that's pushed into light about, like, say, Revolutionary Girl Utena. Now, I would love to do a breakdown of the stuff that happens in Revolutionary Girl Utena, because that's about growing up and growing out. And it's not actually what people think it's about. Like the whole transformation to a car sequence, the sequences with this, like the movie's amazing. And the TV show is pretty good too. And they go through all these little things that are culturally significant to this. You see, there's a thing that called Class S relationships. Essentially, it's like running around holding hands, hugging, just being generally close to a person of the same sex. It's something like when people will be like, oh, we'll do play dates, where they bring over, like, you'll bring over your son to play with another kid's son. You just kind of push these friendships and socialization on your children. A lot of parents do that. And the basic idea of this is eventually, by being able to develop friendships and close friendships with people of the same sex, they will be eventually able to learn how to develop relationships and friendships with people of the opposite sex. And that's an interesting concept that they use in some of these shows. You'll see that very close personal bond. That's why, I mean, this is from a country that has communal bathrooms. Sorry, bathhouses, They are kind of bathrooms, but that happens away from the larger tubs. Hopefully. Anyways, this is a place where that's pushed there, that almost romantic thing, where they talk about things, they discuss issues, and people learn to emotionally develop intense, almost romantic friendships. This is similar to, this actually fell into favor in Japan because of things like Little Women, or Heidi, Heidi and Clara in that. When she's taken from the Alps and is made to be a playmate for like Clara, that's the type of relationship that they're trying to foster there. To help a person get over her physical inadequacies and handicaps by helping her emotionally with her handicaps, to help her evolve emotionally. You see, everyone needs a friend. They need a close personal friend. You need someone to talk to. You need someone to relate information to. And sometimes you need someone to break your heart. Part of emotionally developing and becoming a functional emotional adult is that kind of emotional stress. Anyways, they do this in Japan a lot, where they do that. They do that with boys, they do that with girls. And when you see it in anime and stuff, a lot of people tend to think that that actually has some kind of sexual overtones to it. It actually doesn't. It's a romance, but hey, remember, we live in a country where, here in the United States, where there's love and sex, and they're two different things. But in many other countries, like, say in Hebrew, there's 3 words for love. There's a philos, agape, and eros. Philos being like a brotherly love, or a love of humanity. Agape being a joyful love, a self-sacrificing love, almost a romantic love. And eros being a sexual love, or an attraction, or a lust, or a passion. That's a physical. You've got physical, emotional, and those are separate. Although, when you do find somebody who you can share the 2 of those with, both an emotional and a physical attraction to, that works. That is a beautiful thing. And here's where this comes in. You see, Class S relationships, because they're not really understood by a lot of people when they start into anime, they don't do the research for it, they tend to think, oh no, it's just girls going with girls, blah blah blah. And you see that reflected in Steven Universe or Legend of Korra, which I should review. I should definitely review The Last Airbender and Legend of Korra at some time. Let me know in the comments below if you want me to do that. Anyways, that happens, and people kind of misinterpret that. In fact, actually, Class S relationships are intended to be through grade school, the elementary school, and they're supposed to dissipate or lessen to an extent after high school, during high school or after high school. In fact, it's considered emotionally underdeveloped if they remain in an intense relationship during high school, or rather after it, or after high school. Go see like Strawberry Panic and stuff like that. Or if it develops into a sexual relationship. So, here's where I'm going back with this, back to Steven Universe. You see, rose quartz, and Pearl even mentions this, that rose quartz actually does tend to flirt with the men of the men of the planet. She tends to be looking for that physical and physical attraction as being something different from fusion, whereas Pearl looks at it in that way. Pearl attaches a physical emotionality to fusion, whereas Rose Quartz looks at it from a utilitarian point of view, as in this is a powerful weapon, this is a powerful tool. And the emotional feel that Rose Quartz has, like you could say that Rose Quartz has as an agape or philos kind of love for Pearl, whereas Pearl wants more of an eros. Whereas with Greg and Rose Quartz, it's all 3. And this upsets Pearl. And it's finally about time for her to actually start and talk about it with Greg. And they do, and it's a good episode. It felt like they wasted an entire episode trying to get to this. Like the previous episode was not that good, but this one was. A lot of nice, catchy music. And I'm looking forward to seeing where they go from here with this. It's nice to see these characters getting along, and maybe they could grow just a little. But yeah, I thought it was an interesting episode. What do you think of this episode? Do you have any thoughts about Class S relationships or my interpretation of this? Let me know in those comments below. Hit that thumbs up if you haven't already. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. And until the next video comes out, you are now caught up.